was that you? Oh my God. Because of that, my head just started like big tingles.
Well, they like to buy a calendar.
How am I going to do that?
May not see
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome along. Thank you so much for coming in out of the cold. It's a little warm in here. We'll try and do our best to warm you up. On behalf of Linda, myself, and the rest of the team, really appreciate you spending your evening with us. And we are having a little celebration this evening. The SBCN has been running for 15 very long years. No, it's been a blast.
It's been a happy 15 years. It really, really has. So Dave and I came up with this idea because there was nothing like it 15 years ago. It's all about having a networking strategy, building relationships and helping each other. And I'm thrilled to be around the room to see so many guests and so many members and so many new members. And you're all absolutely wonderful for coming here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we sometimes joke that Linda and I started this. So Linda actually came up with the idea. Our very first meeting was 4 people sat around the table, coming up with the concept for what would ultimately become what you're enjoying now. And we sometimes joke, you know, we planned to do this for like 6 months, see how it would go. We just kind of forgot to stop, so we just kept going. But it really is part of every one of you coming along to these wonderful events. You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I just remembered we didn't always have this room. We started off in Zaya's community room because at that time we didn't charge anybody because we didn't know if we could help anybody. So if you're in sales and you're a brand new business, find out what your customers, clients want before you try and sell to them. And then I guess we got invited here 8 or 9 years ago.
1,000 years ago, Rob?
It was something along those lines,
yeah.
Yeah,
Both
absolutely.
Rob and I had hair, and it wasn't great.
That's right.
So now it's the important bit, isn't it?
Absolutely. So yeah, we're going to get things kicked off underway in style. And as always, we start with our business power-up session with Mr. Gunther Kramer. And I know Gunther's topic is very close to my heart this month, so I'm going to leave it all to you, sir. All right, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see such a great full house. And before I even get started, I just want to say happy birthday to the SBCN, and thank you, David and Linda, for putting up with all of us all these years. So I know sometimes we give them a little bit of a hard time, but that's just to keep them on their toes. So my company is geckowebsites.com, and I've had my company since 1995, where we do website development, digital marketing, everything that's associated with that. And today I'm going to be talking about website security. So all year long I've been starting these talks back in January. I never touched on the subject of websites, so I thought I'll sneak one in quickly before the end of the year. But this is something that I think will hit most of us, if not all of us. And this is part of the Power Up series, which is basically me talking here at the beginning of the meeting for all of 2018, and I'm in talks with the Apple-Jenners, and I might continue on in 2019. So this video is actually for Dave, because Dave last time was saying that this is not what hackers look like. It's not some guy in a hoodie in the dark hunched over his laptop. So I worked long and hard to get this video just for you, Dave. I hope you appreciate it. Got a thumbs up, that's good. But basically, is your website a target for bad guys? I kind of gave the answer away. I'm saying yes, most definitely, period. Yes, there's no discussion about it. It doesn't matter. I get the question a lot of times. People say, well, I just have a basic website. I'm not doing credit card processing. I'm not collecting any kind of information from my clients' addresses or anything like that. If somebody wants to wipe out my website, so what? Why would they hack me? No one's going to do that. The thing is what they're looking for is the next point. They want your website disk space. They want your access to your email systems. Because with those two things, they can do a lot of damage, maybe not necessarily to you, but to the community in the world at large. And what I mean by that, there's about 1 million examples I can give you, maybe not quite that many, but close to it, is, for example, let's say you get a spam, and you see it comes from such and such an email address, and you can reply to it and everything. You're wondering, well, how does this work? If these guys have an email address somewhere and they're spamming everybody, isn't their website host going to shut them down? Aren't they going to be able to be tracked by any kind of law enforcement authorities? Well, the answer is obviously yes. So what they do is they hack into your systems so that they can now send the email through your email systems, and you don't even know that it's happened. Same thing with the disk space. So they might need to have a place where they can put up a fake website. Maybe they're storing some illegal files, such as child pornography. That can be a big one, actually. There's actually a story I'll quickly try to say, because I don't have a lot of time here, but there was a gentleman, his computer wasn't safe, the hackers got in, they used it to store child pornography. The law enforcement authorities, they were trying to track it, they saw that it was going to his IP address, so immediately he was suspect number 1. Now this was a fine gentleman, stand-up member of the community, wife, kids, business, the whole 9 yards. In the end, he was accused of potentially being involved in child pornography. Well, you can imagine what that did to his marriage. His children no longer talked to him. He lost his business. He was no longer employable. Nobody wanted to do anything with him. He was innocent. By the time the court systems went through it all and it was shown that he was innocent, well, his life was already destroyed. He'll never get it back. So this is a worst case dramatic scenario, and sometimes it's not that bad. But again, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your business size is or what the nature of your business is. If you have a website, which means you have hosting disk space, you have email systems, those need to be protected. It's very important to keep that in mind. So, some basic website security tips. Now, this is a lot of basic stuff that I'm sure a lot of you have heard before. It's not just about your website, but it's also about just computer common sense as well. So obviously using strong passwords, we all know that, capital letters, and they have to be like 27 digits and all that fun stuff. Also keeping your website software updated. We're always told to keep our operating systems updated on our computers. Yes, very important. The same thing is true for websites. Websites today are like mini operating systems almost. There's so many moving parts to it. There's so many lines of code that make up even a very simple website. And you want to make sure that all of that is updated. Over a third of the world's websites are powered by WordPress. WordPress usually will be made up of many different software components, each one by a different software development firm. And it's important to keep every one of those components updated, not just the WordPress core software, but all the different plugins, the themes, all those different components. That's very important. You also want to make sure that you're using security software and have a backup and restore plan in place. I've run into a lot of people where they say, oh yeah, I've got my backup systems in place. And then I ask them, when was the last time you tested it? And then there's that silence. Because they realize, wow, I've never actually tested to see if it works. And I say, okay, go and check it out. Try to do a backup, try to do a restore, see what happens. Do you actually have your data backed up? And a lot of times people come back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you told me, because we realized our backup systems weren't working. It looked like it was going through the process, but it wasn't. And then you also want to have a plan for a worst case scenario. So what happens if you restore your backup, but your backup doesn't work, or maybe it's corrupted? Or maybe the hackers got in and they just snuck some code in there, but they didn't activate it yet. So now your hacked site is what's backed up. So do you have previous versions of your site backed up? Going back maybe a few days, weeks, months, maybe even a year or two. Otherwise, in a worst case scenario, you may end up having to rebuild your site from scratch. That can cost you a lot of time and money, lost sales as well. Some intermediate website security tips. Now we're getting into things that are a little bit more complicated. This is something where you might need your website developer to get involved. The first one is making sure all your forms are protected. Now this is a term that some of you may have heard in the news, SQL injection. So SQL is how it's pronounced. Anybody heard of that before? No? One, two, a few?
SQL, but
SQL,
not injection.
Not injection? Okay, so SQL basically is a database format. So most websites nowadays, like WordPress and Drupal and all that, they have databases which run everything for the website. And the database is SQL, basically. That's the name of the software. And an injection basically means what they're doing is they're using a form that you have, maybe a login form, maybe a contact form that you fill out, things like that. And what they do is they're very, very crafty. They're very smart guys, these hackers. And what they do is they find a way to inject code into that innocent contact form, which opens up your access to your database for them. and then they can start to manipulate your database, which means they can give themselves an account to log in as an admin on the back end, and now you've just blown open the door wide open for them. So it's very important that any forms that you have are protected against SQL injections. Now I understand this is stuff that the average person has no idea how to do it or what it means, but it's something to be aware of. If you have a website, it's something that I would recommend looking into. Another one is accepting website file uploads. Again, not something that too many websites do. It's usually more, bigger organizations. But if you do have a website where you're allowing people to not just fill out a form, but also upload a file, you want to be very careful with that. The way that the software is written, there are ways to have it done properly so that those files can be analyzed by the software and it knows for sure that it is what it says it is. Just because a file has a JPEG extension doesn't mean that it's a picture, because we can just rename a file to say whatever we want. We can change the metadata and so on in there as well. So you want to make sure that you have proper software in the back end of your website that's going to analyze that file and see, oh no, this is not maybe a simple innocent JPEG, and then it's not going to allow it to be uploaded and run on your systems. The other one too is using HTTPS for your website as opposed to just HTTP. This is becoming more and more important as the years are going by now. The search engines such as Google and Bing and so on, they're becoming a lot more strict in regards to how they're looking at those sites. If your site is not secured, in other words, it doesn't have HTTPS, it's not using a security certificate, it's going to become more and more penalized as time goes on. You're not going to be listed as high in the search engines. And the plan eventually, which should be coming out in the next while, is going to be that if your site does not have the S in there, instead of your site coming up when people type in the address, a page is going to come up from the browser saying, this site is not secured, warning, we think you should avoid this site altogether. Not good for business. So if your site is not already using HTTPS, it's time to really look into that. So some advanced security tips. You want to constantly scan your site as well for malware. I mean, you can put in all the security you want, because really all this website security, computer security, technology security, it's really a game of cat and mouse. Sometimes the good guys are ahead, then the bad guys get ahead. And then the good guys are ahead, then the bad guys get the upper hand again. It's a never-ending game of electronic warfare. So just when you think you're on top of things, they come up with a new way to overcome all of your security features. So you want to make sure that you're also scanning your site. And do that on a regular basis so that if something is found, you can deal with it as quickly as possible. We did have one gentleman, a client of ours, we do not do his website, he just has the hosting with us. And he had somebody else doing his website, and it was dated, it was old, it hadn't been updated in a while. And he actually did have a SQL injection, and his site was hacked. And they did build about 10 different sub-websites hidden deep within his own website. And they were fake logins, so it looked like people were getting the Bank of Nova Scotia login screen. And so that's what he had on his site. We got notified about it pretty quickly by our tech team, and as we were removing it and taking care of it for our client, we actually got an email from the Bank of Nova Scotia saying, we noticed that on your hosting systems, this and this is happening. So it's something that you want to be aware of, you want to deal with very, very quickly. In a website nowadays, again, there's a lot of different components. There's the back end that you can log into and so on. You want to make sure that you change everything in the back end so it's not the stereotypical style. So what I mean by that is, for example, again, I said WordPress is a website software that is used on over 1/3 of the world's websites. And with that, all of these websites have the same underlying infrastructure and how they're built. So a bad guy knows, well, the database structure is built up in this way. The login to the admin section is located over here. And if you can start to move things around and jumble it up so it's not the default, it's not the standard, then you're giving the bad guys a hard time. And it's not that it's impossible for them to break in, but it makes it harder for them. So for example, if the login for a WordPress site, for example, is whatever the site is, .com/wp- and so on, they know that. Well, if you can rename that to something else, it's like the bad guys can't find the front door to get into your site, which is great. There's other things, like same thing with changing the database structure as well. So a database is usually all structured the same way. There are things that you can do to change how that structure is named and where the data is found. So if they try to do that SQL injection, even if they can do that, because your site is not protected from that point, if the database structure is built up in a different way, if things are renamed, then their SQL injection attempts fail right away. So you're stopping the guys before they even get started. Again, this is something that I don't expect the average person to do, but it's ideas that you can bring to your website developer and say, hey, do I have this in place? Is this something I should be aware of? Now we're getting away from the tech. This is the biggest, weakest link, and I'm sure Dave will attest to that. People, right? All of us, right? We've got this thing between our ears that's supposed to keep us smart, and well, it doesn't always work that way. And you know what? In all honesty, you don't have to feel bad because even the best of us will fall for it. And that's something as simple as you get an email and it looks like it's from somebody that you know, and you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to reply to this, and I'm going to click on this link, I'm going to whatever, and all of a sudden your computer is compromised. Whether it's your website or your computer. Actually, interestingly enough, Maxine today got an email today. I was busy all day, I was not reachable. Maxine got an email, said something like, you know, hey Maxine, I'm busy right now, which happened to be true today. And it said, oh, can you just get me these 3 Amazon gift cards and scratch off the thing and give me the code? Linda's, yeah, you got one too? Yeah, I think a few of those were going around today. And it looked authentic. It signed off, you know, Gunther Kramer, Gecko websites and everything. It looks like it's coming from my email address. And she's looking at it and she's thinking to herself, I know Gunther's busy. Does he really need me to go out and get 3 Amazon gift cards? Maybe, but it sounds a little odd. So she did the smart thing. She thought, you know what, no, this seems off. Something's not right. So she waited until we got a chance to talk, and she said, just to make sure, did you send this? And I'm like, no, I did not. But that would be what we call social engineering, where people get just enough information about you so they pretend to be you. We all see that in Facebook sometimes, right, where there's a second account that's opened up, and you're thinking, I'm already connected with my buddy Bob. Why does he want to connect again? And you say, oh, okay, well, I'll connect again. You just connected with somebody who's not Bob. So that's social engineering, and that's what you want to be careful of as well. And of course, don't forget hardware. I think this is more Dave's expertise, but again, don't leave your devices unattended. It doesn't take much. For example, a bad guy can have a tiny little USB stick. He just goes up to your laptop that's sitting unattended at a cafe, sticks it in for a couple of seconds, pulls it out, walks away. That's it. Virus is on your system. He now has full access to it. So you want to be very careful with that. It doesn't take much. Also, you want to be aware that once your device is hacked, there's so much that they can do with it. When you're thinking of your digital life, here's a question for you. When you're thinking of your digital life in whole, so you're going to log into your bank accounts, you've got your website, you've got whatever associations where you have accounts and everything else, where do you think the biggest, weakest link is? What is the one thing you don't want the bad guys to get access to? Who knows? Anybody? Sorry?
Banking info.
Banking info, okay, what else? What is the one thing I could use to get into all your stuff?
Password keeper.
That's not a bad one. Better yet?
That's what I was saying.
That's what you were going to say. Any other guesses? No? Okay. So basically, it's your domain name and or email address. So let's say, for example, your domain name comes up for renewal. And for whatever reason, you're busy, you're not paying attention, and you miss it. And somebody else grabs your domain name. First thing they're going to do is they're going to create all these email addresses that could be yours, using your name, using info at, whatever the case is. And then what they do is they go to all these different websites and they say, yeah, I forgot my password. Can you just reset my password and send me the link to my email address? Because now they've got access to everything. So if you do have a domain name and you are going to get rid of it purposefully, make sure that you go to all those different places where you've used that domain name to create an account and change it before you get rid of that domain name, before you get rid of that email address. So if someone gets access to your email address, they have access to your entire digital life. So that's very, very important. In regards to hardware, some of the other things, some of this sounds a little bit more maybe sci-fi or like CIA type stuff, but there is a lot of truth to it. Is the last point, you can have a device that's hacked, it can be turned off, powered right off, lid closed, the whole 9 yards, and yet they can still activate the microphone, they can activate the camera, they can watch and listen, they can access the data that's on the computer. So it's very, very important that you make sure that you have everything protected. In regards to the webcam, that's a big scary one. A lot of times too, for example, I use a Mac. Whenever the camera's on, there's a little green light to let you know that the camera's activated. Again, if it's hacked, well, the hackers, they just simply turn off that little green light. So you can be watching, you don't even know you're being watched. And you might have noticed a lot of people put a little piece of tape on their camera. Who here does that? Yeah? Wow, that's it? I was expecting 50%. Dave, take note. This is serious.
Definitely.
This is serious. So yeah, your camera is a very important one. So people put a little tape on there. An important thing to note, all the big guys in tech, so like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs back when and so on, everybody that's in the know, Mark Zuckerberg, they all cover their cameras on their laptops. They know. Now you do too.
What about phone? Telephone.
Same thing with the phone. If it's accessed, if it's hacked, it can be done, yeah. So with a laptop, for example, there's a little device that you can get. It's not too much. And I just got one here. I know it's going to be hard to see. It's just a little piece of plastic with a little bit of tape on the back. You can put over top of your camera. Then you just slide it open when you want to use your camera, and then you just close it again when you don't need to use your camera anymore. And then that gives you that sense of security that, okay, now nobody can watch me. And you know, we're getting close to Christmas, and I like giving stuff away. So Maxine, if you wouldn't mind, I've got one of these for everyone here. So you can grab one. So now you know about the camera security. Now you have the tools to protect yourself. So make sure you do so. And yes, you know, it is branded, I do have to admit. But if you don't like the branding, I don't know, you can probably marker it off or something. Or just get a different one. That's okay. I won't be insulted. So that would be it for me tonight. Again, Skepco websites. And does anybody have any questions or stories or statements or anything in regards to this topic? Yes?
One thing that people should realize that if they're using SQL, structured query language, it does have the capability to encrypt all data. So you should make sure that if you're developing a database, that you encrypt the data on the database. And that way, even if it gets hacked, it doesn't make any difference. They can't access the data.
Absolutely. Yep, that's a very good point. Again, a lot of websites they don't have that as a whole, perhaps, but there is that sort of thing that can be done. Absolutely. Yes.
The domain thing, didn't that happen to Google too?
Yes, there was a fun story with that one. Somebody managed to snatch one of Google's domains, which blew everybody's mind in the tech industry that would happen to Google of all people. Which again shows you it can happen to the best of us and even the biggest ones. As far as I recall, the story ended with the guy saying, yeah, fine, that's okay, Google, you can have it back. And I think they even paid him a little bit. I don't know, David, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think he was paid.
I think he was paid a little bit, and it was more just, okay, you know what, you caught us with our pants down. It's all good, so here's a little bit of cash. Yes?
One other thing, be careful as far as your electronic stuff is concerned. Do not leave it in the car.
Yes.
If they steal your car, they steal your electronics. And that happened to somebody that I know. They had all their backup drives in the back of the car. And of course, the backup drives were not encrypted. And the car got stolen. They wrote it in here about the car with all the backup drives in the back.
Oh dear. That is a nightmare scenario. Absolutely. Absolutely. One last note, just a quick little bonus, is we just have the latest GDPR legislation that came into Europe. It does affect everyone around the world. It might not tell you much. Basically, it means you do have to provide extra protection on your websites. And if you are hacked, you do need to let the authorities know within a certain time frame. But those are all things that you can talk to me afterwards. I think Dave is wanting to get going on the rest of the evening. So thank you very much as always, and feel free to contact me about this topic or any other anytime.
Thank you, Gunther. As I said, a topic very close to my own heart. So yes, definitely put the little webcam covers on. They do work. Very good. All right. Well, let's get cracking. Guess what time it is, folks? For those that have been attending some of our events through the year, you know we have a little video series, right? It's that time. So yeah, let's see who is the guest star in our latest outing. Oh yeah, can you grab the lights there, Craig?
Because the star needs to be seen properly.
Hi everyone, I'm Linda. I'll call Jenna. So,
Whoa.
What are you doing?
Oh, failed.
Have you cut me off in my time again?
Sorry. That was weird.
hi everyone, I'm Linda. I'll call Jenna, social sweetheart and co-founder of the Small Business Community Network. Thanks for joining me. Here comes our other co-founder, Dave.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I was just finishing up a conference call. So what are we doing today, Linda?
Well, Dave, today we're going to look at a very important part of the SBCN, the role of our ambassadors. To help us explain, I've arranged to meet one of our ambassadors, Craig Herner.
Oh, just a sec. He's just sent me a message saying he's caught up fixing some computers for one of his clients and wonders if we can meet him there.
Okay then, off we go.
Hi guys, thanks for meeting me here. My client relies on their IT to help keep these machines running smoothly, and today it needs a little Herner magic.
No problem, Craig. As one of the SBCN ambassadors, you're very visible in the community. Can you share with us some of the things you do in the role?
Of course. I'm a very active member of the local community, so I have a chance to talk about the SBCN with people I meet at many different events. I also help share details of SBCN events and help maintain the high profile that you guys have built up over these many years.
And you do a fantastic job, Craig. You also do a lot at our monthly networking events too. Can you share a little bit about that?
At the monthly events, I am one of the first people our attendees see, greeting them at the door. I'm also helping getting them settled, getting badges sorted, and generally making sure everyone is comfortable.
Our SBCN ambassadors do a wonderful job helping the SBCN offer our events and promote our benefits to the business networking community.
Well, someone has to keep you guys in line.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Craig. If you'd like to find out more about the SBCN and our benefits, or if you'd like to meet Craig here, check out our website, www.sbcncanada.org.
I think Steve Bentley ate all the butter tarts.
Well done, Craig.
Oh,
You
excellent.
added that last bit, didn't you?
That was a great little addition. I'm just sorry that Steve missed it.
So we make one of these a month for those of you who are not here, and we always choose someone who helps us and gives back to the community. And it's Craig this time, so you were amazing, Craig.
Thanks.
Yeah, and who knew you had such funky clothes? Fantastic.
Nice socks too.
Yeah, really good. All right, let's move on. We have some thank yous to say. First and foremost, I want to say a massive thank you to TELUS. They are our corporate sponsors, have been with us for many, many years, and certainly are very, very good supporters of ours. We also want to thank Adam Smith and the whole team at My IT Guy. They are our event sponsors, so the fact that we are all meeting here is largely down to them. And I'm actually going to invite Rob to come up and say a few words from the Waterloo Region Small Business Centre, where we happen to find ourselves. Rob, tell us a little bit about the work you do.
Thanks, Dave. I want to do a lot of cartoons.
You need one of those? Okay. We can make that happen.
It actually would be a good idea because this is, I think, the first time I've been here since we started up in September.
Yes.
So it's
You
been.
left us before.
It's not a matter of that. I wish it was. I wish I could get here every time, but we like to cycle through. And Marjana actually does the last class beforehand. She comes in and chats on a regular basis. So it's been a while since I've seen some of you, and never for some of you that I've not met yet. So welcome, and happy anniversary to the SBCN, Linda. 15 years. We've not been involved quite all 15, but as Dave
It's a long
mentioned,
time.
it's been
Many
12 or
over.
13.
We
Yeah,
appreciate
so
it.
it's been a really good working relationship, and we love having you guys here. For those of you that don't know, the Waterloo Region Small Business Centre is an organization that's set up as a government partnership in our case. There are 57 what the provincial government calls small business enterprise centres across the province. We have 3 of them here in the region. So this is the main office for the Waterloo Region Small Business Centre. We have an office in Waterloo, and we have one in Cambridge as well. All 3 offices are connected with the cities that they represent. Our office here, obviously, City Hall. Waterloo is also on the main floor of their City Hall. Cambridge is actually embedded with their Economic Development Department, which recently moved from their City Hall to the Gaslight District. So they're actually down the street from the City Hall at, I think, 96 Grand Avenue. So you can pop in there if you're from Cambridge. But we are all the same organization locally. We are set up, and our purpose is to assist entrepreneurs of all levels of business development. Our primary focus is sort of conception through investigation and initial launch, but we have programming that assists people to take it to the next, take the business to the next level, to grow it, multiple locations, hiring employees. There's a number of programs that we have here at the center. I encourage you to take a look at our website and get a really detailed list of what we do. We do run a couple of programs in which we offer mentoring as part of the component for that, and Marjana handles our mentoring component. She was just talking to me before she came in and asked me to make sure that I point out that we're always looking for new mentors. Janet's been a mentor, Gunther's been a mentor, Sneaker tonight?
No.
Not tonight, okay, well, those three for sure, and we've had other people who've been involved with the SBCN be mentors before. Linda comes out and talks to our summer company crew every year, so there's been a really good relationship with that. And if you wonder what mentoring for the Small Business Center is all about, ask Gunther or Janet. I'm sure they'll be happy to share their experiences with you. But if you feel like giving back to the community and helping either student entrepreneurs or people who are just getting started in their business, by all means, feel free to contact myself or Marjana. I'll have both of our cards up here on the front table, if that's all right, guys.
Fabulous.
Enjoy your 15th anniversary
Excellent.
celebrations.
And I'm going to give you a thank you present, which I found out.
Bus tickets, great.
Don't too cold.
I know. So yeah, extending the thanks. Steve Bentley, unfortunately not here this evening, but he's our digital content sponsor. So the fact that we are live streaming this event this evening. Hello everyone there on the internet. Partly down to Steve and the support he gives. He is also the SBCN mentor, so if you need to get some mentoring from our organisation, go see Steve.
And he's also my second husband.
He is your work husband.
He's my co-host on my TV show. So
Absolutely.
he's a big help.
You have a TV show? I don't think you've mentioned that before.
No.
You should talk about it.
Not here.
Obviously, we want to say a massive thank you to Gunther. He has been doing the Business Power Up series all year long. The feedback has been phenomenal. Thank you very much. I think we all learn something new every single month. So again, many thanks to you. Ian is Ian is a massive supporter of ours. Has been for a very long time. He also sponsors the door prize each and every month. So when we have our little prize draw very shortly, you'll know that that prize is coming from the wonderfully warm heart of Mr. Ian Ingles. Kirsten, we have to thank for the tea. Now, there's a small story here.
Yes.
Usually we have tea. We had a small water boiling technology challenge, shall we say? AKA the kettle broke. So there's no tea. We do apologize for the lack of tea. And obviously, as we've heard from the video, our SBCN ambassadors are an integral part of what we do. Represented this evening by Mr. Craig Herner. Give us a wave.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig. That's the real one. That's the real one. And also Mark Bankovic. So Mark is, yes, round of applause for both.
Social ambassador. And Gary, the person you met on the registration desk, he's been working all day, so you have to go over.
He has. He has. And of course, all of our other community supporters. Right. Do you want to talk about Christmas?
Yes! We have a Christmas party every year, and it's amazing, mostly because I'm there, obviously. No, I'm joking. Show of hands who is coming to the Christmas party, awesome.
Great.
Still time to register. Why our Christmas parties are fun is because we have the now famous SBCN quiz. And we have some people who are not in the room tonight who try and cheat. And we say, in the answers, yeah. So you never know what questions you're going to be asked. So you get into groups of 6 or 8, and everybody the winning team walks away with the prize, don't they?
For sure. I mean, we make the quiz and we don't know what questions you're going to be asked. So go figure.
And Gary normally comes. Gary's actually our son, so he'll come to the quiz with us, and they want to sit by Gary for the answers, and he doesn't know the answers either. So there's still some space. All the information's on the website sbcn.info/Xmas, and we're going to be closing registration, I think
December 5th, right?
5th of December.
Yeah, December 5th.
So it's going to be fantastic, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We would love to see you there. All right.
This is the fun bit.
Now, we've got a pretty busy room this evening, so we're going to have to go pretty quickly, but we're going to do a quick round the room. If you would be so kind as to tell us your name, the name of your business, and just because it fits in with our theme for this evening, what causes you the most stress in your business?
And you've still got time to tell everybody about your business when the fantastic presentation is over. There'll be more networks out there, so try and keep it to the 30 seconds, otherwise they might get angry.
Okay, well let's start ladies first, if you would be so kind.
No pressure.
Alright, so my name is Tamara Menon. I'm a student at Laurier, music student. And I'm doing the Yuva Arts Project. I'm the founder, and we're doing it in partnership with Empty Space and Prerna, which which is an organization in India. And we're planning to bring in 6 to 8 youth from India in May 2019 to do an arts collaborative project with Indigenous and refugee children. What causes me the most stress in my business? Mostly social challenges and the cultural stigma surrounding the kind of work that we're doing.
Oh, that's interesting, thank you.
Yes.
So I'm also part of the Arts Project. I'm a project coordinator. So we're music students, but it's not a Laurier project. We're doing it outside of Laurier, but getting lots of help from the community. So right now we're just working on fundraising. We have an event coming up December 2nd. We're doing a holiday dad and daughter event. And we're going to be doing coffee houses and just things to raise the funds to get these kids over here. And yeah, I'm in music therapy, so a lot of the workshops are going to be music-based and arts-based. So we have a lot of collaborators within the KW community helping us with that. And we're happy to talk to anyone who would be interested in learning more afterwards.
Great. Awesome.
Hi everyone, my name is Marcus Goffin. So my business is called MG Consulting. I've just recently sort of officially put this name to it and have business cards. I am in market research and sales development, specifically for startups and small companies. So in tech, IT software, as well as physical products, quite a range. I've been working for about 3 years now with startups, primarily in Communitech, just trying to discover where to sell what they're trying to build, how to package it, how to price it, who to sell it to, so trying to help them really get off the ground, and even in some cases help them with funding, with planning and different marketing and sales proposals.
30 seconds are up, sorry.
I was ending right there, don't worry, I had 30 in mind.
Peter, you show them how to do it.
My name is Peter Zoller. I am the chief pilot of Brussels Business Pilots. What's my cause of stress? Is seeing business owners spending hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on software, and then only using a very small portion of it.
That's a really good one.
That's good. All right, thank you.
Chris Morris with Legal Shield. We provide affordable legal services and ID theft protection to small businesses and individuals. My biggest stress is just getting our message out there.
Judith will be, you're hiding, aren't you?
Hi, I'm Judith Regling. My business is called Regling Business Solutions, and I work with small businesses in the region, mainly in the region, to keep clean books and to use their numbers to manage and grow their businesses. Cause of most stress is when there's technology glitches and I need to do something and I either have to learn something new, which these days feels like a stress, or figure out how things are supposed to work.
Kim.
I'm Kim Wilson with livingtech.ca, simplifying technology and empowering older adults to embrace technology and live a connected and independent lifestyle. What causes me the most stress? Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
I'm Mark Petkovic. I'm one of the social ambassadors for the SBCN, and I do the Thursday Coffee Connects from 1 to 3 at Darby's Cafe. So when I'm not having fun doing that, I'm an independent mortgage broker, and my biggest stressor is you're acting as a marriage broker between the lender and borrower, and sometimes they don't communicate and they don't want to give you the documents you need. So.
Thank you.
Sylvia Rechter, SG Money Coach, Money Management and Budgeting. My biggest stress is there's not enough hours left in the day.
I feel that's going to be very common. Let's go for, hear from Craig.
Oh yeah, Craig.
All right, Craig Kerner, Ultimate Vision Web and IT Solutions. IT and web for all small and medium-sized businesses in the region. I'm also selling Kiwanis Club calendars, and part of the proceeds go to Hockey Helps the Homeless. So, and it's a lottery calendar, so you can win money of every day of 2019 if you buy one. And my biggest stress, I guess, just having enough time in the day to do everything.
Oh yeah.
Let's go to Ian.
Hey everybody, Ian Ingles. I'm a realtor with Remax Solid Gold. Do I look stressed right now? because I am, because I have clients who are in the process of, in a multiple offer presentation. I'm waiting to find out if we were successful or not. So I'm stressed.
You don't look it.
Yeah. Janet Benedict, the Canadian networker, and I network and coach a lot of people. I'm always connecting, and I love that. And I can honestly say, my work does not stress me out.
Yes. Todd Foster, mortgage broker with the Mortgage Center. And I would say one of my biggest stresses is currently trying to create content for social media and post on social media. We have some great people, Mark Benkovic, Craig, Steve Bentley, who are always posting on social media and trying to keep up with the likes of them, as well as providing content that people want to read and see is one of my biggest challenges.
Well, I can help you.
Yes, please.
I'm Harsh, and I'm a student of Conestoga College. I don't have a business, but I'm in the process of learning networking, and in the future setting a business. My goal is to set a business.
That's great.
Hi everyone, I'm Drew. I'm studying business administration from Conestoga College. I would say I'm the biggest assignments.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Too many of them, and they're always due, right?
I'm Joy Lang. I'm from Cardinal Counseling. The biggest cause of stress is imposter syndrome. I don't feel like I know what I'm doing much of the time.
I'm Paula. I'm also a Conestoga College student from the Business Management program. I don't have a business right now, and my biggest stress is like I'm almost done, so finals are coming up.
Oh, good luck.
All right, we'll go to Tommy.
Yeah. So I'm Diane Crumpart. I am the founder of Sensitive Soul Coaching and Mentoring, and I'm going to be speaking tonight, so I will tell you all about my stress later.
Very good answer.
Brian Hull, main business is Kilton Inc. We do, I guess, application developments and systems integration, fun things like that. My biggest stress is probably figuring out how to balance that work life. I just had a new baby too, so. That's letting us stress. Oh my gosh! What am I doing here?
Actually, you should connect with Todd because he's in the same boat.
Hi, I'm Richard Walls. I'm a co-founder with Brian with Kilton, and I guess stressors are hours in a day, business development, and maybe accounts receivable.
Do we use force or not?
Actually, you can tell me to phone them off. I'm good at that.
Absolutely.
That's good to hold.
My name is Holly Parsons with Verve Electric, and my biggest stress, no surprise, is working with Nathan.
Nathan Parsons with Verve Electric, full service electrical contractor serving Tri-City and surrounding area. We do small service, residential service and renovation, and I don't really have any stresses because we're putting them all on her.
Oh, that is so funny, guys.
So I'm Cameron Rubel. I'm a financial advisor. I just live to help people, and the big stress is finding people who need help. On top of, as you were kind of alluding to, that work-life balance. This time of year with a house full of too many children, there's somebody sick all the time, and sometimes that means I have to be away from work to look after the home. So
we understand. So,
yeah.
Good evening. I'm Sergey Pavlov from Wonderland.ca. I help helping businesses to get visibility on the internet, building website and promote it on search engines. And the biggest issue, it's not enough time to learn new stuff all the time. So you need to learn.
Thank you.
You're on that.
Hi, I'm Steve Orr from Uptown Printing, and I guess my biggest stress is everything in the printing industry. Typically, it's always rushed. So I'm always trying to make sure that my customers are satisfied, they have their product, and I do my best.
That's a good one.
Very good.
Good evening, I'm Cheryl Scott with Legal Shield, so I do the same thing as Chris, and one of my biggest stressors is while people will get a legal plan to protect their family or their business, they will say, oh, well, I'll save the $10 a month and not get the identity theft because I'm not really at risk. And in this day and age, we're all at risk. It's not a question of when, or not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Hi everybody, Wayne Scott from Infinity Orthotics Center. We create fully customized orthotics as well as supply knee bracing, ankle bracing, and do custom shoe modifications. My big stress these days is growing our business without killing our staff with the extra bit of action, but we're surviving, so thanks a lot.
My name is Maxine. I'm project manager with Gunther at Gecko Websites, and I don't allow stress to be a part of my language whatsoever. I take it as an opportunity to learn and grow.
I like it.
Good.
And Dr. Kramer from Gecko Websites, and for me, it's very important to keep in constant contact with my clients as much as possible so they don't feel abandoned, so they know we're there to always help them and be there for them. And that time management thing is always, getting in the way. So that used to stress me out. It doesn't anymore because I now have Maxine, which helps me.
Oh, yes, it's been much nicer since you've been here. I'm sorry.
I won't argue that point.
I'm Linda. I'm called Jenna, the troublemaker. So I'm a motivational speaker, author, TV host, amazing wife, SBCN co-founder. What more can I say?
Well, what causes you stress other than me?
I was born stressed. I have to admit it. I'm a work in progress, work in action. I'll keep on working, not being stressed.
Okay,
You're really good to me. You don't make me stressed.
I try. Yes. I'll leave that one there. So I'll round it out. I'm Dave Ockwell Jenner. Easy to tell the difference. There's a tall one and a short one. I'm the tall one. I actually own my own cybersecurity consulting business called Prime Information Security. What causes me the most stress is, this time of year, I guess. Not because it's the holidays, love the holidays. It's because hackers have holidays and then they get bored and then they hack stuff. When I'm on vacation, right? This is not cool. So this is what causes me my stress, I think.
That's good.
And it's a great question. So we figured this is a very stressful time of year for many, many people. And we figured we would have an expert to tell us how to deal properly with this stress.
We're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So for the next little while, we'll leave you in the capable hands of Diane. But before we do, we want to give something away.
Oh, I forgot.
We forgot the door prize. Come on now. So yes, we have the box of fun.
Judy.
Everybody put their business card into
Everybody
the
has a
prize
card
box.
in here?
That's a big card.
That's always handy.
That's Judy's.
Right. This is the bit where I throw them all over the floor. Yeah, right. There we go. Select away, sir. Not that one. No, that's fine.
Your arts project.
Hey, look at that.
Thank you.
Congrats. All right, well, there's one less stressful thing, right? Okay, so Diane, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. I'm going to use a chair because I like to get comfortable. Yay! So happy to be here and to talk about my favorite topic, which is stress. So I'm Diane Crompart, and I am the leader and founder of the Divine Feminine School for Healing Arts, and I'm the founder of Sensitive Soul Coaching and Mentoring. And I am an expert in stress. I have earned it. Similar to Linda, stress and particularly anxiety, depression, panic attacks were a part of my life since I was a very little girl, and I had no idea what that was. I just assumed everybody felt that way. And I was very sensitive to loud noises. I was very sensitive to people who were in pain, suffering of any kind of conflict, and my system would just get overwhelmed, and I would be anxious all the time. And in fact, I can remember hiding in a closet, and I heard, there was a big party going on in the house, and I was just always fearful. Like the adrenaline and the cortisol cortisol was always moving through my system. And I remember feeling like I had fire going up my arms and my body, and which was strictly adrenaline overload. So I was kind of born anxious, and that kind of stayed with me a lot through my life. Although I did very well, I did well in school, and you know, had some great careers as a psychologist and continuing to study. I was always fascinated by helping people. Always wanted to help people. And no matter where I went, somebody would always come up to me and tell me their problems. And I just thought, this happens to everybody, but it doesn't. So my whole business is based on helping people who are experiencing stress, and particularly if they are feeling overwhelmed. Now, as we all know, some stress is good. We do need some stress because it is the ancient system of fight or flight. And when we are stressed, we need to respond and we need to react. But in this day and age, the tigers are no longer out there, so that we don't have to run when we see something like that. But on the other hand, it stays with us. It just keeps building and building. And some of you spoke about the stress balancing life and work. And that I'm seeing more and more in my business. It's really affecting people. So stress affects the mind, the body, and the soul. All three. And it certainly did for me. As we know, the medical profession is saying that if you continue to be stressed and your system is always adrenalized, eventually you will become ill. Your immune system is not going to be able to cope, and you can develop illnesses. Certainly, many people are experiencing mental illness, emotional strain, handling all the stresses of their life. And what I'm also seeing in this technological world that we live in is that the more connected technologically we are, the more disconnected we are personally. And this causes a lot of isolation in people. They feel isolated in that nobody really listens to them, nobody really sits down with them. And that's why I find a lot of people are going to coaches and therapists and counselors. It's not that we need, there's something terribly wrong with us mentally. It's just nobody listens to us anymore. Nobody really sits down and says, how are you? What are you coping with? What is your struggle? And that's sort of how I got into this work over 20 years ago. But really what happened was, eventually, what happened to me was I ended up having a nervous breakdown. By the time I reached 40, I was so go, 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 never stopping. I was on my second graduate degree, working full-time, doing workshops on weekends, helping people. I was always helping people, and it was never enough. And I was just go, 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 and I stopped sleeping. I went to the doctor and was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. I had food sensitivities, headaches. Physically I was, but I was like, go, 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 I gotta get all this done, right? And so one day, and especially not sleeping, how many of you have trouble sleeping? How many of you have the monkey mind that goes on at night, where you either review your day or you're worried about your day? Like I was last night. I kept waking up thinking, I gotta give a talk, I gotta give a talk. So I was like, okay, do my deep breathing, it happens. So myself, I got to the point where my anxiety was so commonplace, I ended up depleting my serotonin level and began to experience bouts of depression. And developed my first panic attack. Now, if you've ever had a panic attack, oh my God, it does feel like you are dying. And my first panic attack, I was lying on the sofa, and I said to my husband, I'm dying, I'm dying. And he came running, and he's like, what is wrong with you, you know? And it was just like, because it was just the chemical release in that limbic part of the brain causes these panic attacks. They're very, very scary. And eventually I developed a phobia where I couldn't leave my house because I was afraid of developing a panic attack because they would just come out of nowhere. Yeah, I was a mess, and I didn't know it. And what's truly embarrassing is, as a psychologist, you'd think I'd know better. I studied it. I knew all about it. It happened to me. And it was stress that, you know, that kind of led me down that path. So I ended up going to the doctors, and I said, you gotta give me something. I'm not sleeping, I've got stuff to do, da 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 da. And she said, oh, she said, you're not going to be doing too much of anything for at least 3 months. I'm writing you a note, giving you some medication, and you're going home. And I went, no, like, what's wrong, kind of thing. And she said, you are having a nervous breakdown. Now, this was 20 years ago. Today, they'll call it burnout. So I looked at her, and I went, no, I'm not. You know, I studied what nervous breakdowns were like. You know, people go crazy, and it's sort of, you know, you got a lot of people. No. My nervous system was on such overload. My lack of sleep affected my hormonal levels. The chemicals going into my brain, my parasympathetic system could not calm down. And she said, you are going down, and you're going down for a long time. And I was like, so I went home, told my husband, and he was like, well, I know you're stressed, and you don't sleep, that's fine, but nervous breakdown. It took about a week. I was on really good medication. Medication's my friend, it's okay. And the exhaustion. I was out really for about 2-3 months. Just slept and slept and slept. Enough to get my nervous system to calm down. So now this is the extreme, but I believe that that was part of my journey, because really that nervous breakdown was the beginning of my journey into creating a business to help others so that I could help them to get to that stage, because I knew what that journey was like, and it's not fun, it's not pretty, and it takes a lot of time to heal. So my purpose and my passion grew into my business, my full-time business. And I used my training, I used everything I learned in my healing journey, which included, you know, therapy, obviously, some spiritual direction. And one day, I was sitting with my psychotherapist, and I talked about a dream I had, and she went, oh, you have to go see Patricia. Who the hell is Patricia? I have enough appointments going on here, you know, and you send me to somebody else. And she says, Patricia is an energy healer. Right. I thought, okay, sure, one more thing. So, to say the least, I was not impressed. I was skeptical, but I thought, you know what, why not? So I went to see this Patricia, and she was amazing. Now, this was over 20 years ago, actually. And she did some energy work on me, but she also was really a coach. And I was used to doing therapy with people. And her style of coaching was more, you know, let's really deal with what is happening in your life. And let's start changing little things. How can we make things better so that you don't have to be experiencing all of this? And I ended up staying and studying with her actually for quite a while. So I incorporated that into my business. So what I discovered was this with stress and anxiety. It's not an easy fix, okay? There's no such thing as an easy fix. Usually it comes from a lifetime of a pattern of stress or anxiety, so that you really need to look at what needs to change here. And you got to change your mindset, you've got to change some of your beliefs, and a lot of my beliefs were based on, it's not enough. I'm not enough, I don't do enough, I don't have enough time, I can't help enough. It's the I'm not enough syndrome. And so then, let's move forward a little bit, and about 3 years ago, I met someone who was a business coach and a mentor for highly sensitive entrepreneurs. And I had heard about the term highly sensitive back in 1998. Dr. Elaine Aron had found that 20% of the population is born with a highly sensitive nervous system. So they conducted MRI studies, they conducted genetic studies, and they show that 20% of the population, we are born with very sensitive nervous systems. And Linda is one highly sensitive. Linda? She's Linda. Like me. And fellow highly sensitive. I'm sharing about that now.
Oh, good.
So what that means is we are very vulnerable to sensory and emotional overload. And it's mainly because our brains are wired a little bit differently. When they put a highly sensitive person in the MRI machine and they give them a very simple stimulus to respond to, they found that the brains kind of lit up in all different areas. All kinds of things were happening because we process very deeply and very quickly as compared to the other 80% of the population. So we are wired slightly differently, and our nervous systems are very sensitive, which is why I used to sit in the closet when there was a lot of things going on, which is why it's hard for me to be in a big group, because too much stimulation is coming at me. But it's also why I am so passionate about helping others deal with their stress, because I know what it feels like to the extreme. So a lot of highly sensitive people venture into businesses like mine, which would be therapy, counseling, healers of all kinds, teachers, and we make very good leaders, because some of our main strengths and gifts are we are highly intuitive, we're very empathetic, deep feelers, deep thinkers, deep listeners. We're deeply spiritual, we're detail-oriented, and we have an acute awareness of subtleties. We absorb others' energies and feelings, and it's like we are the psychics of the world. But there's no woo-woo here. What it is our brains just take in from all the senses the information. So I can remember coming home and opening the door and just knowing something, some argument or something had happened. We just pick up the information that way. So about 3 years ago, I did meet my business coach and mentor, who is Heather Dominic, who's the leader of the Business Miracles for Highly Sensitive Entrepreneurs. It's a global movement. And I studied with her for a while, and then one day she called me up from New York, because she's out of New York City, and she said, would you be one of the coaches? We're doing extremely well in this business, and would you help me out? And so twice a year I go and I do training retreats for women who come from all over the world, who are female entrepreneurs, who are highly sensitive. And just so you know, of the 20% population, 50% are men. There are just as many men who are highly sensitive. So what happened was my practice got so full, and this was about a year ago now, that I thought I can't keep up with this, so I opened a school. And now what I'm doing is I am training some of my previous clients who are very interested in learning how I work with people, and they are apprenticing. So I'm working less, earning more, hey, and as part of the school, that's going very well. So now what I'm doing is I'm offering little workshops here and there, just to sort of, a one-day workshop, just to sort of, help you out. So that's what I want to share with you tonight, and to let you know that this Saturday I am giving a one-day introductory workshop called My Sensitive Nervous System. And I'm going to cover things like, you know, what does it mean to have a sensitive nervous system, why it's important to manage your energy, how to manage your energy and your stress. And I'm going to share some of my favorite techniques, things that worked for me. We're going to go over a daily energy routine, a series of 12 different exercises and self-care routines. And I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process to help you plan out, create a personalized plan in terms of where you are and what you're struggling with. So that's sort of it in a nutshell, but it's been interesting that stress has kind of created and followed me in my business, and it's just growing and growing in today's culture. And so I'm hoping that if you're interested, if you have a loved one or someone that you're thinking of that could take advantage of this workshop, I've got a number of sheets here to give to you, and you can see me, and then you can register for it. I have a special SBCN rate for you, so I'm giving you quite a discount because I love you. And if you'd like to sign up and get my newsletter, I send out monthly newsletters, and you can hear more about the work I do and where I'm going next. So that's sort of it for me. I'm just wondering, you know, if you do have any questions. Yes.
I would be very interested, but I can't make it this Saturday. So for anyone who can't make it this week, when would your next workshop be?
I would probably have one more in March, and so that would be a good thing for you to sign, get on my mailing list so I could let you know. And yeah, I know it's kind of short notice, but it just worked out that way. Yeah, great. You think you might be highly sensitive?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, you can find out.
Wow.
Any other questions?
That's amazing. I think most people want to talk to you privately.
Yes.
Because some people are shy like us, aren't they?
I
But wasn't that wonderful? Thank you so much. That was an eye-opener. Thank you.
I think I feel a little calmer already.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's done the job. Thank you, Diane. So certainly, if you would like to connect with Diane one-on-one, we are in this space for around about another 30 minutes. So please make the most of this room, make the most of the room next door. There's still some coffee left, right, I think?
Get to know somebody you don't already know.
Absolutely. We'd certainly encourage you to do that. For those that have been out to our events as well before, you know that essentially we're just a bunch of alcoholics with a networking problem.
That's not good.
There's maybe a better way of phrasing it, but that's kind of what it is. So a few of us go over to, where are we going today?
I don't know, I didn't write
Abe Herb is the place, over at the Tannery. So if you want to join us for a continued conversation, that is where we will be from around 9 o'clock onwards.
That's what we call social networking.
That's a much better way of phrasing it than what I came up with. Yes, let's call it that.
So mix and mingle, talk to people you don't know, and then round about 9 o'clock the lights will go out and they'll throw us out.
Yeah, so thanks very much, everybody, for coming out. Please do make the use of the space and the time left, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
There's people you want to talk to.